shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Behave yourselves!
Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry Sadovia at the movies. So today we're doing something a little bit different. We're reviewing a short horror film called Into the Night, which seems to have made its way into YouTube back in 2022, October 27th, 2022. And it's a horror picture, but an unusual one, and about a story that we've seen before, but I haven't quite seen it done this way, and certainly not with its revelation in the same way as before. So, what is the story? The story deals with basically a hit-and-run accident. And just as you might suspect, the one involved in the hitting and running is this young man who's in a truck. He hits a bicyclist, a female bicyclist, and she is, first shot of the film is him looking through the viewfinder, seeing that she's there in the street. This is late at night, and her hand is moving, so she's just barely alive. So instead of calling the police, he flees the scene. He comes home, he goes to the bathroom, and he throws up. And then we see the doorknob shaking and rattling. We're not sure. And my first thought, of course, was that bicyclist somehow has come back. So some of those cliches you start to think of almost immediately. Oh, I see. So now he's going to be tormented by this person, but it's actually his wife. Although why she's shaking and rattling the doorknob, I'll get to in a moment. But she says, oh, everything okay? Are you okay? Oh, yeah. Says, all right, well, dinner's almost ready, and blah, blah, blah. So he goes to the phone, and he actually calls the police. And he says, I want to report an accident. I hit this woman, and I feel terrible, but I fled the scene. And the police officer on the other end basically says, well, but you didn't have to tell me. I mean, it's not, what was she doing in the middle of the night? This sort of victim blaming thing. The officer's saying, well, just let it go. It's okay. I mean, you could probably get away with it. You don't have to make this call. And he's doesn't understand what's happening. This is perplexing. I mean, how can, he's reporting a crime, and it is a crime. You're not supposed to hit and then run. And it wasn't probably his fault either. But he has that guilt. And then he puts the phone down, and then he's watching the news broadcast, and it is about this hit-and-run accident, on this mountainous mountain road. And right there and then, the anchor man is saying all this stuff, reporting the crime, and then he looks into the camera and says, but, you could probably get away with it. You can blame the victim. What was she doing in the, at that time of night, riding a bicycle? So then, let's say something happens, and the horror of it, and it has a lot to do with the shaking and rattling of that doorknob, but I don't want to give it away, because this is a 14.5-minute film, so please do check it out. The link will be below, by the way, for you to check out this film. The horror of it is really about the humanity of this character who finally admits to himself that he's guilty of a crime. I'll leave it at that. And it doesn't deal with the cliches that normally circulate around this type of story. And that's what I appreciated best about it. The horror elements are sort of muted. They're there, but they're muted. I thought it was really a perfect short horror film. And one that, I always hope horror films will often tell this type of story, because it functions in two ways. One, the hit and run and his relationship with his wife, which is extremely brief as it's depicted, they could be part of a serious film. So that's one part of it. And then, the real drama that would be invoked in something like this, obviously. In addition to the horror element that's introduced late in the game and throughout, because his mind is playing tricks with him. He's almost telling himself not to feel guilty, but he can't help himself. And that to me was fascinating. If any of you remember, there was a wonderful Twilight Zone episode back from 1964 called You Drive. And that was about a hit-and-run accident that resulted in the death of a child. And the guy is haunted by it, and the car that he was driving that did this keeps honking and honking and honking, reminding him. And it gets to the point where eventually he tries to do away with the car, but the car somehow returns back to the garage. And then there's a point where it sort of takes over the wheel and drops him off at the police station. And now he has to report the crime that he committed. That, and of course, there are many other stories like this that we've seen, from Creepshow 2 to, I mean, there's a bunch. The director of this film is Chris Goldade, I think is how you pronounce his name, and he's made this film through a independent film company called Crystal Mountain Film, which I think they're located out of Washington, if I'm not mistaken. And there are a bunch of other films that they have done, so I'm curious to check out some of these other ones. But this is a perfect short horror film, so do check it out, please. And the link will be below for you to check it out, in case you come across my video first. I didn't want to give away too much, but for 14 and a half minutes, it is quite thrilling, and it holds your attention. It really is. I think this guy is a gifted filmmaker for sure. So check it out. And those are my thoughts. Have you seen this film? What do you think of Into the Night? There is another film called Into the Night by John Landis. That's not what we're talking about here. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. Tell me what you think. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you are already a subscriber, make sure you hit that notification bell for future uploads. And that's all I got to say about that. And this is Jerry Saturday at the Movies, signing off.